Hello and welcome to all our viewers watching us live on our social media platforms. I am Utkarsh Agarwal. Well, 2 days back, our Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the Union Budget 2023-24. Well, some said it a budget for middle class, some said it a pro-corporate budget. But today here we will analyze and discuss the key takeaways for the budget for India's one of the largest contributing sector for that is the automobile sector. And for this, I'm joined by a panel of experts. I'm joined by Mr. Sohinder Singh Gill, CEO of Global Business for Hero Electric and Director General of SMEV. Mr. Nikhil Gupta, Director of Sales, EVCS and PVI Business at Delta Electronics India. And Mr. Amit Gupta, Managing Director of Blade India. Thank you so much for joining us here. So I'll start by asking all of you about your first initial reaction on the budget 2023. Mr. Gill, you can start.
Yeah, thank you. I would say, on the whole, it's a forward-looking budget for automobile sector. On one side, there are some sort of punitive actions taken against imports of like CBUs and SKDs, CKDs, because wherever localization has happened, it is to encourage the Indian manufacturing. And other side, there are continuation of some of the earlier benefits in electric vehicle, like lithium cells. The new thing that is added is capital equipment for making cells. Capital duty has been reduced. And then there are generic factors of MSMEs being taken care of in terms of payments, assurance, etc. So on the whole, I would say it's whatever was expected, it is in line with that.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, your initial reactions on the budget 2023.
Yes, so the union budget removes the custom duty on capital goods and machinery for a manufacture of lithium-ion cells for use in batteries of EVs. I think this move is going to help in reducing the cost of EVs in the country. Moreover, there is an outlay of close to 20,000 crore rupees on National Green Hydrogen Mission. I think this is also going to make our dependence on fossil fuels reduced to a larger extent, and then moving the economy towards a low carbon intensity one, and probably making India a global market leader in this sector. So, all in all, I mean, I see good positive points coming out of this budget for the overall automotive sector, especially the electric mobility.
Okay. Mr. Datta, your initial reactions on the budget 2023.
Yeah, so I'll comment more from a mobility point of view. I think the thrust on increasing the infrastructure, whether it is airports, on the heliports, and the regional connectivity scheme, right? That's very, very welcome, right? Because that's something that we sorely need. Also, in the case of, let's say, helicopters, there is huge work being done on electric helicopters with zero carbon footprint. And I think the entire move towards looking towards cleaner energy, very, very welcome. So a step in the right direction.
Okay. So majorly overall, everybody is talking about the electric mobility, and we saw in the government that government is pushing for green mobility. But we also saw that government is also promoting the hydrogen mobility that is towards the alternative fuels. So how do you look at that?
Well,
Mr.
yeah, you want me to start?
Yes.
See, this is a great step because we missed the electric mobility bus by a decade, and we are now sort of starting in a big way. And many countries, including China, has really hugely overtaken us in terms of electric mobility. The same mistake shouldn't have been committed in the fuel for the future, and hydrogen is a fuel for future. So we have enough time available to develop the right solution for India, and I think it's a great beginning for that. Because ultimately, as my friend is saying, net zero sustainability we have to achieve. Hydrogen for the heavy duty trucks, or otherwise for the energy needs of the country, if properly developed, is clear a right answer. It's not contradicting and conflicting with electric mobility of cars and light vehicles and two-wheelers and three-wheelers. So good, great steps. It should be logically concluded in next 5 years or so. By the time this will fructify into commercial application, and I think we should be home in one of the leading countries in application of hydrogen properly in sustainability.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, what do you think? Is the future lies ahead with the hydrogen or electric mobility?
Yes, I think it is going to be a mix of both the technologies working in parallel. So EVs have already started, and as Mr. Gill said that, we are behind the globe. I mean, China is far ahead of us in terms of EV technologies. But we should not do the same mistake here in terms of green mobility, and we should start at the right time with the right technologies and tractions coming in place. So, as the finance minister said, that the target is to reach about 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen by 2030. It's a great step. And I think, as I mentioned, this is going to move our economy from the fossil dependent to more on the greener side. And then, yes, possibly we could lead the entire globe in terms of the green mobility from India.
Mr. Datta, what do you think? We have seen electric helicopters, but do you think will we see hydrogen run helicopters and urban air mobility too?
You see, so far, the development of electric helicopters has largely been in Europe and US, right? And I have not seen too much work being done on hydrogen cells there, right? It's been more the traditional batteries, right? So, but I'm sure that, overall as an energy source, if that is being developed for ground mobility, then the same technologies will also impact air mobility as well. And so, if that advancement does take place, and if India, develops its R&D in hydrogen technology, I'm sure we would be able to utilize that even for electric air mobility.
Okay. Mr. Datta, also the government has risen the custom duties on the import of luxury vehicles and cars. So how does that impact your company, and how do you see that?
No, for us, my work is really more about the electric air mobility, right? So on the luxury cars, I mean, I can tell you only I used to earlier work with General Motors a long time back, and for sure that's always my view, that's always a dampener because of the higher taxes taking place, right? And it will definitely promote more indigenization. That's my view, right? Of and localization of parts happening here, right? But it will definitely hit demand.
Okay.
But I'm a bit removed from the industry, so that's my personal view.
Okay. Mr. Singh, what do you think about it? So which companies would it affect most, and how do you look at the import duties being risen from 60 to 70%?
You asking me?
Yes.
Well, I don't think so. These luxury cars are price sensitive or sensitive to fluctuations in small duty changes. And what has been done will not deter anybody who's buying premium cars, etc., to spend another few thousand rupees, right? But it is good. At least they should feel pinched. If they are spending on luxury, then they should be able to afford more and give something back to exchequer. So that's my view. But on the other side, on CKD, SKDs, etc., certainly a duty increase would mean more emphasis on localization. The problem here in electric mobility has been that there has been a sort of last 1 year of a huge debate in the government about whether localization should have happened 2 years back. And that's why the subsidies also have been stopped for virtually 30 EV players for the last 1 year. And looking back, my opinion is from SMEB point of view that localization was not at all possible 2 years back in those volumes and that quality level, when the total volume, for example, for two-wheelers was only 26,000 in the country for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere we have to see in such policies that there should not be type of witch hunting or cart before the horse type of an issue, where largely one has to see what is the country's objective. Is electric mobility, huge conversion from a dirty fuel to a cleaner fuel, also reducing the burden of this foreign exchange on crude oil. So those two broader objectives should not be derailed by a small, delay in localization or otherwise. When the end sight is clear, now it has happened. So same way, we should be very clear about two or three things. I believe in budget, henceforth or now. The budget should also be a platform to a long-term thinking about such radical or disruptive changes, not 1 year type of a horizon. For example, we don't know whether the next frame is going to come or not after 1 year. So is budget the right time to announce that, okay, electric mobility will be still supported through subsidies or not, is not yet clear. It will come one fine day from next day morning. Similarly, things which are going to derail the electric mobility, which has been derailed for last 4 or 5 months in a huge way, should be seen pragmatically and flexibly, that, okay, larger objectives is being fulfilled, quality is there. So let us postpone slightly whatever delays are happening. They take a pragmatic and flexible view over there. Those are the things I expect generally from the government. And the spokesperson from the budget point of view should be able to eloquently, demonstrate those type of feelings.
You mentioned about localization. So the government has reduced custom duties on lithium-ion batteries also. So do you see the electric vehicle prices going down significantly
No,
in
they
future?
haven't reduced any import duty of lithium battery cells. They have continued to have reduced duties, so it is not going to have any impact on the electric vehicle pricing. What will happen in after 2 years or so, when those four big guys like Adani's, Reliance, etc., they start manufacturing electric lithium cells, then the custom duty on the capital goods that they are importing, if they are importing, will be reduced from 21 to 17%. So that may have a small incremental impact onto the cost of lithium cells that they're giving. So nothing really for the next 1 or 2 years. It is after that there will be some positive impact.
Okay, so you're saying that this budget is for the pro-rich, not for the middle class.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that a budget should be a platform to give a foresight into future for such technologies. A budget should also take care of sort of a flexibility of approach, which is already there in the budget. But some of the parameters, for example, SKD duty going up, CKD duty going up, is a great step now. But it was not a great step 2 years back. So now they have corrected it. But I'm talking more of the past.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, what do you think? Do you see the prices going down significantly of electric vehicles in future?
No, as Mr. Gill rightly mentioned, so this custom duty is reduced on the capital goods and machinery. So it is only, I mean, there will be two positive impacts. One, people will be more inclined towards investing in for producing cells locally in India, yes. And once they do that, then probably, yes, the cost of cells may be better than what it is while you import it from China and other countries. So probably, yes, the cost of EVs may come down, say 2 years down the line, and by then, because of economies of scales, also the prices may come down a little, and overall, this will push the overall EV sector in the right direction.
Okay. So, Mr. Datta, what do you think are the key takeaways from this budget? What do you think?
Yeah, so maybe I'd like to just voice one of the changes which we would like to see. You see, in the case of ground mobility, in a way, it is incremental. It's about the technology changing, but the roads remain the same. You add on battery charging. But globally, there's huge change towards electric air mobility, which is, makes far less noise, zero carbon footprint, and much cheaper. That has the ability to democratize air mobility, right, to a much larger section of Aam Aadmi compared to helicopters today, right? That's happening globally, at least the development. But that does not need incremental change. You see, while the Ministry of Civil Aviation has been making fairly large announcements in paving the way, but I think we need to make those more strategic announcements in preparing the country for electric air mobility. So let me give an example, is you will not need heliports. You will need vertiports with a battery charging infrastructure, air cooling infrastructure. So it's not just about building more heliports. It's about developing a new technology of vertiports. Similarly, in technologies like, right, you'll have, electric craft flying at 2,000 feet, fixed wing at 30, drones at 500, right? You'll need an air traffic management system to be developed to meet for the new technology of, let's say, aircraft, right? We've been talking also about manufacturing. Now, if you look at helicopters or even fixed wing, right, they are really all made outside the country. But today, in fact, as far as, if you look at electric helicopters, Blade has signed MOUs. We've signed with Beta, we've signed with Eve, where we are planning to assemble and manufacture these electric craft in the country. I think that's going to be a paradigm shift where all of this used to be not manufactured in India. We are now looking at manufacturing and assembling them in our country. That's where we've drawn up MOUs. But in order for India to be at the center of gravity of the electric air mobility platform, there needs to be a huge paradigm change. And I would have expected a more strategic thought on how are we preparing ourselves for that journey.
Okay. Mr. Gill, what do you think are the top hits and misses? What was missing in the budget for the automotive sector and what should have been done?
Especially for e-mobility, I think we need to continue to incentivize the customer. But on the other hand, if you multiply the figures, they will become humongous. For example, the way electric mobility can be incentivized and can go in volumes will lead to something like 3 lakh crore rupees of subsidy in next 4 or 5 years. Where from that money will come? So the budget should mention the need of incentivizing as well as the possibility of generating the resources to incentivize. We can't tax the poor man for incentivizing electric vehicles, but we could have started principle of polluter pay in this budget so that there is a pressure on one side of people converting from conventional fuel to electric. On the other side, there is a sort of a confidence of incentives to be continued for the customer for adoption. Because otherwise, for example, if subsidies are withdrawn today, the electric mobility will fall flat on face because it is 45% to 50%, the cost is getting reduced through incentives itself, which is so very important also in the next 4 or 5 years. But on the other hand, where the money will come from. So I expected this type of a balancing act of assurance of continuing of incentives as well as a backup of generating resources through the polluter pay to be able to fund it by itself.
Mr. Gupta, what do you think? According to you, what were the top hits and misses from this budget?
Yeah, so while the finance minister has doubled the FAME 2 budget and then the extension of custom duties on concessional duties on EV batteries for one more year, which is a welcome step. And then they've also tweaked a little on the custom duty part of it. But then the couple of things which, as an industry, we feel also should have been done. One related to the EV spare parts. So, I mean, this has been a long pending demand from the industry. So, if you see EVs, they're at a 5% GST, whereas the spare parts are at 28% surcharge. So, anybody who buys a car, I mean, at least countries like India, in our country, we also think about the after sales maintenance, like how costly is to maintain the vehicle. So this GST demand is long pending, which was not taken up in this budget. And then, as Mr. Gill also pointed out earlier, that this FAME 2 policy is only extended for 1 year, whereas EV market in India will require much more time to mature. So only an extension of 1 year is not enough, and I mean, the industry may need a longer term support. So instead of extending it 1 year by 1 year every year, if we have a long term or mid to short term clarity of this extension being made for 2 to 3 years today itself, then people are much clear about the roadmap. Three, the research linked incentives are missing. Most of the technologies today are from abroad. The manufacturing is from abroad. Even if we are assembling something in India, we have to depend on all the components and technologies from outside the country. Whereas if we have to lead this particular segment, we must develop our own technologies, maybe something similar to or parallel to lithium-ion batteries, wherein we become the hubs. But then those research-linked incentives are also missing, which could have otherwise paved a way for country to become more stronger in terms of technology and local manufacturing.
Mr. Datta, what did you expect from the budget and was missing in that?
Yeah, so, I'm coming back again to the thought of electric mobility in the air. While those craft are yet to be certified, they are still in development, getting certification. We've talked about how that makes it truly a more democratic platform. And for that, I mean, you have to then look at the GST rates. Today on helicopters, right, the GST is 18%. On civilian craft, it's 5% for economy. Now, today we run a service from Bangalore airport to HAL airport, which is between 4,000 rupees and from there to Electronic City, is really targeting the economy class customer, right? And if you want to take away the pressure from our roads and the road congestion, then you need to also have the GST rates, right, which promotes that. And 18% is definitely a barrier, right? I do hope that as and when electric craft gets certified and we look at the rates, both for craft, both for tickets, right, we are then able to ensure that it serves the need of the more common man by the GST rates that may suit them. So that's my view.
Okay. Mr. Gill, how do you see the big picture as an industry expert? How do you think this budget has impacted the automotive businesses in India?
My expectation from a budget is more than financial number crunching. And increasingly, it is happening also to a certain extent. But in case of, I told you, like disruptive technologies and futuristic ideas like electric, the budget should be a platform to sort of announce government's intentions, a country's intentions towards a goal, which is zero carbon mobility or sustainability, which is so very important for the country as well as for the society. So if those goals are so imperative and we must somehow achieve those in a span of 7, 8, 10, 15 years, then directionally the budget has to talk vociferously about actions that will be taken in that direction. So we have now electric, we have blending of fuels, we have hydrogen, but there's still a confusion of which is better, which is not better. Sometimes something prop up, sometimes hybrid comes, sometimes people say we can't leave diesel and petrol. So there is a statement that should be clearly there that okay, the country will go this way, and come what may, we will follow it. So that should be the first statement that should come from the government, because this is the right pedestal which the world also looks at and India also looks at as futuristic ideas are. That is one. And then actions to follow into that direction to make it happen have to be sort of flexible yet very clear. It should not be cast in stone that, okay, we will go in this direction, because you may have to have course correction a little later. So directionally, we should evolve a formula of how we will reach the destination with a clear intention, but a flexibility of correction midway. So at a macro level, I believe budget should be there. That. So we are little away from there. There are things that are done incrementally. Here, somewhere CKD duty increasing, somewhere CPU increasing, somewhere capital goods increasing. Sum total of this, are we accelerating into the future of sustainable mobility? No. So either there have to be actions following that in big terms, or on budget day itself, they should be announced in a big way. Now there's a big change, country will follow this process.
Mr. Gupta, do you agree with Mr. Singh?
I mean, if I look at the big picture, say what are the positives coming out of this budget? The finance minister announced the national green hydrogen mission with an allocation of close to 20,000 crore rupees. I mean, with a view to facilitate the transition of our economy into a low carbon intensity and green economy. So, few of the points which she announced, which I would like to highlight here, is one, 5 million metric tons of green hydrogen production by 2030. The battery energy storage system supported by the viability gap funding, and then the interstate transmission system for evacuation and integration of 13 gigawatt of renewable energy from Ladakh. So, which is supposed to be built with an investment of about 20, I mean, again, close to 20,000 crore rupees. And 500 new waste to wealth plans under the Govardhan scheme. I think all this will facilitate the transition of our economy into a greener one. So, I mean, of course, all these are announcements as of now, so has to be backed up and supported with the actions going ahead. But yes, as far as these announcements and measures are concerned, I think we are moving in the right direction and towards the greener economy.
Siddhartha, do you also think that the government wants to move towards the net zero but doesn't have a clarity of thoughts as which path to follow?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with Mr. Gill's part that, the budget is not just a presentation of what the year's numbers are, is more a strategic vision of the future as to where we want to go. And you keep making those course corrections every year, right? Now, what are some of look at our country. Fact is, if you look next 10, 20, next 10, 15 years, urbanization continues to grow. I think it shows somewhere by 2035, we'll have 850 million people in urban areas, right? A number of cars per thousand today, 22 per thousand compared to the US at 950 per thousand. Personal mobility will have to go up, right, on that. But I think the vision should really be, look, we need to look at multimodal transport hubs, right? Because that is going to be the need with our urban cities getting more and more crowded. And towards that, what are the solutions required? So rather than looking at it piecemeal, I think the point is right. Look at more and saying, this is our challenge, right? So what do we do on ground mobility? What are we looking on air mobility? Because, we are going to be, our penetration in personal mobility is going to be the highest, right? So if that could actually be spelled out as a long-term vision and then saying, what's the roadmap for the next 1-2 years? I think that would be a better way. So at least we're progressing on a common direction.
Mr. Gill, as an industry expert, so you will give this budget a thumbs up or thumbs down? So.
No, there is no thumbs up, thumbs down. You can't really make yes or no situation. There is always an aspiration of better expectations, I would say. But at a base level, I agree that it's generally positive looking budget. But much more, like everybody sitting here, particularly Amit has spelled out, we have to now look not just ahead of us, we have to look far ahead of us. And then work in unison to achieve that. For example, now on electric mobility, the most important thing is awareness, spreading awareness to a common man, that it is your duty as well as your responsibility, as well as your savings that will convert. So some part of budget should be allocated along with industry to hugely make people educate, aware about their responsibility towards, for example, our Mother Earth, the planet, the greener part of it. So those are the things and pieces that should be weaved in. So it looks a comprehensive, in national level, broad budget, which is futuristic in nature. So from that point of view, I would say it's a tapered budget, but for an incremental point of view, I would give it thumbs up.
Okay. Mr. Gupta, how will you define this budget? It's a thumbs up or thumbs down for you?
No, I look at it in a positive way. I think all the thought processes and all the measures which are announced are towards making India a net zero economy. I mean, through green cities and green mobility. So, building city infrastructure and then making all the urban policies and prioritizing the alternative mobility solutions, maybe, dedicated lands for parking and subsidized power supplies through the energy storage and the transmission and distribution measures which are announced in this budget. I think all this network, also the battery swapping networks will accelerate our journey towards the green economy. So I look at it in a positive way and would like to give a thumbs up. But then, as already said by all of us, all the announcements have to be backed by actions in the right directions.
Okay. Mr. Datta, it's a thumbs up or thumbs down for you?
Yeah, so I would agree that it's a very positive budget, is a step towards the right direction. We will always want more, right? What I would be very, very happy with is when the budget is presented next year, you actually do a report card or all the initiatives that you announced. What is the execution and actions that you progressed? I think a lot of our thinking is all great and is in the right direction. The challenge really becomes implementation at the ground level, right? And the execution. And maybe that we've announced all these, right? Next year's budget will be a good time to take stock and saying, this is what we did and this is where we are.
Okay, so the challenge is the implementation and the execution. So with this, I would like to thank all the panelists for joining us here and would like to close this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.